Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this first panel. Well, second, I think, in the day, but welcome to this panel. My name is Veronica Arroyo, and I'm a policy associate at Access Now, and we're very happy and glad to have you here. I'm going to present a quick presentation before we start. Am I presenting? Perfect. So the title of our panel today, it's called Facial Recognition Tech is Binary, but people are not. Before continuing with this, I need to read a disclaimer to all of you. The comments made by Fundación Getúlio Vargas employees and guests during online events and broadcasts exclusively represent the opinions and not necessarily the Fundación Getúlio Vargas institutional position. We also reiterate that everyone present here has agreed to participate in this event spontaneously and with this authorize the use of their name, voice, and image, in addition to see the property copyright scans related to the exposure for this transmission, which will be made available later on Fundación Getúlio Vargas official channels. To continue with this transmission, we ask that you, my dear panelists, express yourself, verbalizing or signaling your agreement. We're all right. Thank you. So we continue with this panel. We have 1 hour and 30 minutes to go and have this beautiful discussion. As I told you, my name is Veronica Arroyo, and I work at Access Now. We are an international NGO working to advance human rights in this digital age. Our main objective and our main mission is to defend and extend digital rights of people at risk all around the world, because we are located in 13 places. I'm talking with you from Lima, Peru. And we have today important guests and panelists coming from Brazil and from Italy, who will bring us a very broad perspective. And in this really important day, such a really beautiful coincidence that today we're going to talk about how, our society, our communities, our non-binary technology might be, as we're going to see. But today is International Non-Binary People's Day. I want to take a minute here to celebrate this, acknowledge this important day, because as you know, non-binary people identify themselves as non-binary specifically because they do not feel that they fit on either not female or male identities. And everyone here who are present in this room and in this virtual room, and also who are seeing us in the YouTube channel, are here because we believe in diversity, we believe in inclusion, we believe that we need to understand this as something that is important for our communities, and because we need to respect this and also defend people's rights. I'm really happy that we have this. We're gonna keep talking about a non-binary people with non-binary necessities, and obviously we're going to talk about other groups as well. But I want to take this minute to celebrate, commemorate, and say that we are here to make this world more inclusive and celebrate the diversity that we have. It's important also to talk about non-binary day in today's session or panel, because today we're going to talk about technology and we're going to talk about facial recognition, and you will say like how these two things can relate to each other, like we're talking about two different things. But that's the main objective of this panel. We want to open want you to open your minds, to open your eyes and see that there is more things when we talk about facial recognition. We talk about biometrics, because biometrics is just not about, it's about privacy and surveillance issues that we can talk about for hours, but it's also really important to see that there are other angles that are as important as the privacy ones, and these are related to our self-determinations as people, and our rights to have our integrity in our bodies, in our decisions, and that's very crucial for our development as a person and as a community. So for today's panel, we have three beautiful people who are gonna really shine the discussion and show us more in depth what this means. How is the relationship between this idea of non-binary idea of our communities and facial recognition? We're going to have first Camila Leite. She's a researcher in Idec. Then we're going to have Bianca Cramer, who's a fellow from on privacy, data protection, and feminisms from Coding Rights, another organization doing amazing work in Brazil. And finally, but not least, we're going to have Yuri Guaiana, Senior Campaign Manager in All Outs, an international organization doing a lot of work promoting and defending the rights of LGBT communities. And before I start, asking and presenting these people and going a little bit more, I will just tell you some administrative or logistical things. I will ask our panelists to, if they can, express their. Okay, I forgot the word in English. If they can share with us their pronouns, and also ask them to be as in their speech to use a gender neutral language as much as possible, if possible 100%. I think that this is an evolving situation and task that we are all committed to do it, and we want this panel to be, as I'm saying since the beginning, I'm very inclusive because we are celebrating a very important day today. So I'm gonna give the floor to my dear Camila. She has a presentation for us today. I would love to know, Camila, if you can share with us what do we mean when we talk about facial recognition? What facial recognition exactly means? What is this technology? Why we're talking so much about this? And if you can give us, a real example that is already happening nowadays, and that can, help us to understand better why there is this close relationship that we mentioned before. I stop sharing this presentation and I let Camila continue.
Thank you so much, Veronica. Thank you for the question. It is a great pleasure to be here representing Idec, the Brazilian Institute of Consumer Defense. I'm Camila Leite. I'm a lawyer at Idec and a master's student at the University of São Paulo. I use she, her pronouns. And I will divide my presentation in 3 parts based on Veronica's questions. And first of all, it is a great pleasure to share this panel with Veronica, with Bianca and Yuri. It's a great responsibility to speak first, but I'll try my best. Can you see my screen? So my presentation will have 3 parts. First of all, I will present a ViaQuatro case, which is a great empirical example on the use of facial recognition. Then I will present some concepts related to facial recognition. And lastly, I will gather these 2 topics to present the main topic of this panel, which is this human rights analysis of gender bias and discrimination. Before presenting the ViaQuatro case, I recall or present for those who are not familiar with Idec's work, with Idec's pioneering work in digital rights and facial recognition issues on the Brazilian civil society. But we have other cases and works related to facial recognition. We, for example, have the Ehring case, in which after Idec's denouncement, Ehring was convicted by Senacom, which is the National Consumer Secretariat in Brazil, for using facial recognition without transparency and without consumer consent. Second of all, we have this guide, this facial recognition and private sector guide made by Idec and Internetlab, which is very interesting, and I will use this concept on my presentation on the second part of my presentation. We also have this campaign made together with other civil society organizations from all around the world. We have called out for a ban on the use of biometric systems for surveillance purposes. And we also have, beyond other cases, ViaQuatro case, which became famous in Brazil and it was commented worldwide. So what are the facts of this case before presenting the concept? So ViaQuatro is the concessionaire company for the line 4 yellow at the metro in the city of São Paulo. And this is the most technological line in São Paulo. Who have been there knows that. And every day, 350,000 people pass on line 4 yellow. So what happened? I'll start with ViaQuatro implementing a technology that we call digital interactive doors. I will call DID. So in these doors, right before the entrance of the train, that are usually glass ones, ViaQuatro installed a digital advertisement panel. And as you can see in this picture. And above these panels, they installed cameras and a software using the technology called Mobilize technology. And what did this technology do? This technology, first, recognize the presence of human faces and detect the amount of people in front of this camera. And this camera also detected, or better, inferred people's emotions, age group, and gender. So by emotions, people were divided in relation to their reactions, their faces, between happy, unsatisfied, neutral, surprised, etc. By age group, people were divided, for example, in relation to their height. For example, a small person was considered as a child. Last of all, and what matters the most for us in this discussion, this technology inferred gender between a binary division of only male and female. I will talk about the gender issues on the third part of my presentation, but first of all, the general problem of this case is that there was no transparency and no clear and adequate information for consumers, or better, passerbys in this public space, or better, a public service as a metro. And other than the lack of transparency, there was no right of choice for these passerbys. So acknowledging these issues, Idec filed a public civil action against ViaQuatro, We were supported by the Public Defender's Office, Defensoria Pública. We also counted with 2 expert opinions made by IRIS in Brazil and Access Now. And we also had an amicus curiae participation of Instituto Alana, representing children's rights. Spoiler alert, they just granted a provisional measure, medida cautelar, for ViaQuatro not to use the camera and the technology. And in this year's decision, the justice convicted ViaQuatro. The case isn't finished yet, since there is an appeal in course, but this is already a victory in this sense. So before talking specifically about the gender issues, I now enter in the second part of my presentation, and I will present some concepts related to facial recognition. Here you can access the guide in Portuguese in a full version and our executive summary in English. So I will use the facial recognition and the private sector guide for the adoption of good practices made by Idec and Internetlab. So what does facial recognition mean? I started by bringing the facts and how can we know that this is really facial recognition? So I will use this definition that facial recognition is an automated processing of images containing individuals' faces in order to identify, verify, or categorize these individuals. So we have 3 different possible purposes on the use of facial recognition. The first one is verification. So is this person who he or she says he or she is? The system attempts to ascertain the identity of a given individual. So it's a one-by-one analysis. The second one is identification. So who is this person? The system is able to identify one individual among many, not one by one. The third purpose is categorization. So what can I say about this person? Individuals are categorized according to their facial expressions, age, gender, etc. So why does this matter? Why bring this definition and these different purposes matter for the ViaQuatro case and for our presentation? This is important because ViaQuatro claims that it does not perform facial recognition, but only facial detection. But considering this concept, it can be seen that this technology fits on the concept of automated processing of images containing individuals' faces in order to categorize them, to divide them. We saw that this system made inferences about age group, about gender, and about emotions. So yes, we are talking about facial recognition with the purpose of categorization. Bear this in mind, we can make some assumptions. First, any technology capable of detecting a human face can be considered facial recognition. Second, data regarding to human faces are personal data. And all facial recognition involves the processing of personal data. Fourth, data of human faces treated in the context of facial recognition are sensitive biometric data. Last but not least, data anonymization does not mischaracterize the processing of personal data, which was one of the defenses of ViaQuatro that was not considered in the final decision. It was considered that it was facial recognition. So, considering these assumptions and our analysis until now, which are the possible risks of this technology? First, abuse of rights and control on the part of the company that owns this data and have this data. Second, privacy risks, security incidents, poor recognition of emotions that also happens in this case, but we're not analyzing it today. And what matters the most for us, discrimination and bias. So using this last risk possibly made by facial recognition, I now enter in the third and last part of my presentation, presenting the gender bias and discrimination in the ViaQuatro case. And for this last part of my presentation, I use as an inspiration the expert opinion made by Access Now, specifically by Daniel Leufer and our amazing moderator, Veronica Arroyo. So thank you so much. This expert opinion was really helpful for us for understanding even deeper these issues. So let's recall that the DID system, the digital interactive door systems, inferred these emotions, age, and gender. And these inferences about gender seemed to consider gender as binary, with only male and female possibilities. Given that they claim to detect gender by analyzing faces of the passerbys, we must assume that they believe that gender can be determined from the physiological characteristics of a person's face. This is a flawed assumption, which not only fails to account for the existence of non-binary people and trans people, but in fact perpetuates discrimination and harms individuals who do not conform to this binary and physiologically based conception of gender. So first, this assumption rests on a misunderstanding of the distinction between sex and gender. While sex is a biological category based on anatomy, gender is a person's cultural category, so based on their identity, their expressions. Second of all, and as a consequence of this first topic, the presumption that gender is binary additionally harms non-binary people, who, by definition, cannot be accurately classified, as Veronica mentioned. Gender is not immutable, binary, or tied inherently to physiology. There is a whole spectrum between the two extremes. And while we try to use these binary coded technologies with binary inferences as only male and female, society is much more complex. There is this whole spectrum that represents people's orientation and expression in the society and cannot be simplified only by male and female. So meanwhile, this technology, or one, fails to classify trans and non-binary people, or second, misgenders them by assigning them a gender that does not match to what they themselves have chosen as their gender. These include trans and non-binary people represented by these flags, but okay, let's wait for a second. So why does this matter? And Veronica brought an important topic because today is coincidentally the non-binary day, but also the answer is at the subtitle of this panel. This matters because this is a human rights matter. So yes, we are talking about technology, we are talking about privacy, but we are also talking about how this affects people's lives. And no, we're not condemning each or any type of technology, but we cannot close our eyes for harmful uses of technology, especially when this technology can harm a group and target a group that is already discriminated in society. To prove this point, I brought some data of the National Trans Association, NTRA, in Brazil. This graphic shows that in average, 84 trans people are killed in Brazil each semester. This means that each month, 13 trans people are killed in Brazil. So this is very worrisome. Brazil is considered one of the worst countries for a trans person to live. So yes, this has a great impact on these people's lives. So it is impossible to use this technology without harming trans and non-binary people because it is fundamentally based upon denying them the opportunity to choose and express their own gender. And I will use this quote from Oski's in The Misgendering Machines that I think that is very representative. So, a trans-inclusive system for non-consensually defining someone's gender is a contradiction in terms. This kind of technology should simply not be used. Given the unavoidable inaccuracy and harm, trans and non-binary people will be highly likely to be misgendered, and without their consent and with no possibility to redress. Moreover, I repeat, where the inferences the DID system makes about gender are based on binary codes and conceptions, society is much more complex. And the simplifications causes harm to the dignities of binary people and undermine their right to self-determination. So I'll stop here and leave the floor for my next colleagues, and I will be delighted to answer questions, and I thank you so much for this opportunity and audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Camila. I think that was a very, very great presentation to highlight why the system is really discriminating people. And it's discriminating and getting more and creating more harm that our societies are really doing at this point. For us, it was quite important to see in the case of ViaQuatro that you mentioned that those percentages of people who are getting killed just because of how they identify are insane. This is something that should not be happening. And if we have a technology in a public space, just repeating the same patterns that our society has, that's something that should be stopped. So very, very insightful your presentation to know exactly what's happening in the ViaQuatro case, and also what can happen elsewhere if we continue dealing with this technology more, if we keep having this example again and again. Our next panelist is Bianca Cramer. She's from Coding Rights, and as you might know, or maybe you don't know, but Coding Rights, at the beginning of this year, they launched a very important report on this matter, talking about facial recognition. As Camila mentioned, there are different types of uses of facial recognition. They concentrated on the use of facial recognition for authentication purposes. So that 101 match, and how this, this particular use can affect the rights of millions of people. So Bianca, I really want to know exactly what this report tell us, because you've been talking with people on the ground, and we want to know their perspectives and what is the perspective that we are not seeing in this debate. I pass the floor to Bianca.
Everybody listens. Hi, Veronica. I want to thank you all for this space. And hi, Camila. Hi, Yuri. My name is Bianca Cramer. I am a researcher and activist on digital rights in Brazil, and I have a PhD with a thesis dedicated to an analysis of racial bias in law and technology. I use she, her pronouns, and it is a pleasure for me to be in this panel representing coding rights. Unfortunately, as I was saying before, due to technical issues, I won't be able to share my beautiful presentation with you. For those who don't know our visual identity elaborated by our dear Clarotti, it really is a pity. And I'm struggling here, but unfortunately, we have to move on. Coding Rights, we are a think tank founded by Joana Varón, who aims to contribute to the protection and promotion of human rights in the digital world. And today, I want to talk with you about our research published on January this year. It is a report called Facial Recognition in the Public Sector and Trans Identities, Technopolitics of Control, Surveillance, and Threats to Gender Diversity in their Intersectionality of Race, Class, and Territory. It was produced by Coding Rights and written by Maria Rafaela and Joana Varón, our founder. And the research basically mapped harmful threats to transgenders and non-binary people by the deployment of a facial recognition technology as a tool to authenticate IDs to access public services in Brazil. But what led us to develop this research, you might ask? Actually, it was the increasingly facial recognition technologies that have been deployed on the streets, airports, urban transportations, malls, and in a wider variety of public spaces in Brazil. As an example, the federal government recently restarted last month a pilot project with facial recognition cameras at 2 airports in Brazil, Congonhas in São Paulo and Santos Dumont in Rio de Janeiro. And the facial recognition is an attempt to expedite passengers boarding and making it easier to obtain proof of identity at them. And it is a pilot project, as I said. Only one airline is now participating in the tests and using the technology for just a few flights. But even more recently, it was just an example. The federal government also have been piloting initiatives that use technology as a tool for verifying identity to access public services. And this is an emerging trend with facial recognition being used to authenticate identities in the driver's licenses, to access information about social security. Also what we call MEI, which means individual micro-entrepreneur permit, and many other services that are gradually being incorporated into the governmental app. And this is a trend, as I was saying. And it is likely to accelerate with the implementation of a decree, and a recent decree, that addresses electronic signatures in the federal public administration and establishes a deadline between the mid-2021 and this year, right, for Brazil federal agencies to choose what kind of digital signature they will accept to deal with public services demands. So in this scenario, the Brazilian app, as I was saying, that is called MeuGov, uses facial recognitions to authenticate identities. And it has been disseminated by the Digital Government Secretary as a main tool for what they call an advanced signature. And we don't know exactly what they mean about advanced, but what have we done exactly on this research I was saying? And beyond our desk research, our methodology included a series of Freedom for Information Acts, as we call Lei de Acesso à Informação. They are requests submitted to Federal Data Processing Services, we call SERPRO, Ministry of Economy, the National Social Security Services, we call INSS, DataPrev, another institution in Brazil, digital government secretaries. But so we expedited a series of these requests to submit, to ask for informations that were not being transparent enough. So in another aspect, we also included the deployment of a virtual questionnaire distributed among groups of trans and non-binary people to collect their own impression about the usage of facial recognition technologies. And this is very important for us because we wanted to know from the perspective of those who suffered violence, their own experience with this kind of technology that hasn't been taken into consideration so far. And on the other hand, we have also structured interviews with 5 transgender activists who work in the promotion of human rights for transgender, transsexual, cross-dressers, and non-binary people in Brazil. So the study analyzes the complexity in the implementation of facial recognition technologies for authentication purposes, focusing on the identification of trans people and all the intersectionalities of race, class, and territory, which for us are very important. But what have we found exactly? We found some disturbing information that made us raise an alarm bell, as we can say. SERPRO, the public company that develops the softwares we are talking about, and they are called BioValid and DataValid, they are both using facial recognition technologies for ID identification. And SERPRO is the main provider of these technologies to the Brazilian government. And these services work by crossing images with National Traffic Department database, we call RENASH in Brazil, which is also managed by them. But in response to all those requests we were talking about, the Freedom of Information Acts, we call in Brazil LAI, the company did not provide information about the accuracy of these two services, which means that we got no data about the percentage of error or false positives. So the rationale provided was that we would depend on how these services were deployed. So if they were selling these services, an average rate of error should occur. And this is the important issue for us when we ask the questions about the accuracy of this kind of technology, which is already being used by SERPRO technology. They declared that in another request directed by what we call INSS, National Social Security Services, they declared that they have validated only about 64 to 65% of the biometrics taken. And what does it mean? When asked specifically about the margin of error of facial recognition used for the purposes of issuing a driver's license, SERPRO started that the technology was very high probability of matching images that have over 93% similarity. And in cases, what were we talking about when we talk about this? And in cases that we have gone beyond the pilot phase, such as these facial recognition deployment, and these are records of students that have travel cards, with students with discounts blocked. And we have so far then, as we can say, some episodes of what we can call discrimination and separated aspects. So how many cases like this have occurred? And we don't know. How many cases similar to these how, as we can say, which occurred the phenomenon of discrimination? How many more are going to happen with this new trend of identity validation, verification for trans people? So what could we do about this? So when we experienced when we tried to obtain information through requests, what have we received instead? Some difficulties on obtaining the information. And this is something we have to take into consideration. There is no transparency in the processes. And also we have experienced episodes of discrimination on transgender and non-binary people in similar episodes that were taken into consideration the usage of this kind of technology. But when we obtain this information, what could we do next then? If we know the research was conducted this way, what could we do next? So the research was above all an alert to expand the public debate about the digital IDs, so identification of trans people in public spaces, and also an alert to request more transparency about these pilot initiatives deploying facial recognition technologies, and especially when they are directly to authentication of citizens' IDs in the access to public services. It is very important for us. While these are in pilot mode, it is our window of opportunity to question or draw concrete limits. So tech does not become another tool for gender violence and exclusion, as we can say. Unfortunately, the complete research is only available in Portuguese, but if you want to know more about the topic, please, we invite you to watch the second episode of Coding Rights web series called From Devices to Bodies, featured with interviews with not only Maria Rafaela, who wrote this research, but also with Nina da Hora, a computing scientist very famous in Brazil, and Joy Bolamwini from MIT. It is available on YouTube. And this is in a final conclusion, a final request. This is an invitation for you to know better our work, our research. I'm sorry I couldn't share my beautiful presentation that would make it even more easy for you to see the whole range and the whole aspect of the topics I was talking about. But despite this, unfortunately, I would thank you all for your attention so far, and I would like to put myself at your disposal for any kinds of questions that might occur during this presentation and other provocations and for our other participants that, as we could see in Camila's presentation, they were really very insightful, and I think Yuri would have another point of view for us and another aspect of LGBTQ activism and the topics between vigilantism and the promotion of human rights, considering the usage of technology. Thank you all for this space so far, and look forward for any kinds of questions that might occur. Thank you.
Thank you, Bianca. I think it was completely good to hear something that we have. There is an ongoing trend right now on the opacity part when we talk about facial recognition, even outside this discussion that we're having. The implementation of this technology in the region, especially in Latin America, it's full of no information at all. There's no information who is doing this. If there is, as you mentioned, we need to know the rate of accuracy. If this is really how much this is happening, if the technology that they are implementing are accurate or not. We need to have information in order to ask our governments to do something. But in this scenario where we don't have enough information, I think it's important also to see what other avenues we have for fight for our rights and defend our rights and defend this the inclusion that we should have in our communities. So that's why I want to welcome Yuri as our next panelist. He will tell us that there are other avenues that we as civil society can do. And I want to hear about those great ideas and that Yuri has and wants to share with all of us. So I pass it to Yuri. Welcome to this panel. Happy to have you here.
Thank you very much, Veronica. I'm really, really happy to be here with you, and Bianca and Camila. I'm really honored to be in this panel with you. So my name is Yuri. I am based in Milan, Italy, and I work for All Out. All Out, as we say, is a global movement for love and equality. We mobilize thousands of people around the world to build a new world, a world where no one will have to sacrifice their family, their freedom, safety, or dignity because of who they are or who they love. So I'm going to talk about a campaign, and I'm going to present this campaign following a little bit the small little story that is behind this campaign, to tell you how this campaign was conceived and all of the pieces, because I think that this is relevant for what Camila and Bianca have said so far. the European Union, this confederation, sort of confederation of some European states, passed in November last year a so-called LGBTI strategy. It's a document that outlines all of the things that the European Union commits to do to protect LGBTI rights, which was a first for us. And of course, for my job, I was reading it, and there is a very very short paragraph in this document, long document, that talks about artificial intelligence and the impact that artificial intelligence, facial recognitions, and new technologies have on LGBTI rights. So I wasn't an expert. I am still not an expert on this topic. And I found that very interesting. And in this document, there was a reference to Oz Key's work. So I said, this sounds like a campaign opportunity. So if the European Union is committing to do something around it, I think we need to know better and check that they're doing the right thing. So I reached out to Oz first, and then the other obvious organization that I was thinking about is clearly Access Now, that I also reached out to, and together we thought that yes, it was the right time to start a campaign. I learned from both Access Now and Oz. We actually knew already that in Europe there was this other campaign going on by Reclaim Your Face, which is a campaign that is asking to ban all sorts of biometric data being used by companies, governments through facial recognition for whatever reasons, biometric data in public spaces, that is. And so we decided to reach out to them as well. And together, All Out, Access Now, Reclaim Your Face, with a huge help by Oz Keys, we decided to launch a campaign that has this ask here. It's an ask that is very, very clear. We want automated recognition of gender as sexual orientation to be banned, and we are calling on the European Union to ban this technology. Why are we calling on the European Union to ban this technology? It might sound a little Eurocentric. Well, we decided to go down this path because we found out, actually, Access Now told me, Daniel in particular, that the European Union was about to present a bill that wanted to regulate better artificial intelligence. And so that was the perfect moment. And the date when the proposal was about to be presented was April this year. So we said, this is the right moment. We need to ask the European Union to include in that piece of legislation that they are proposing, like a ban on this harmful technology. And this is because there was this opportunity, but it wasn't just that. All Out is a global campaign, so we wanted to launch this campaign globally, which we did, and we thought, well, does it make sense to target the European Union only? And it did make sense to us, because what we are asking is not only to ban automated recognition of gender or sexual orientation in the European Union, but it's also to ban all the export of this harmful technology around the world. So that could be can have an impact on the rest of the world as well. Also, we thought, well, the European Union started implementing GDPR, this legislation to protect privacy, and other countries now are doing the same, improving actually the model that the European Union thought of. So why not doing the same for this kind of technology? And here is what the story is about this campaign. This campaign was launched in 6 languages, including English, Portuguese, and Spanish. But on top of this very political, let's say, kind of ask, the campaign, we realized that, as Bianca was saying, what is very needed at the moment is also to expand public debate on this particular issue. So we wanted this campaign to also be an opportunity to educate people, to trigger public debate, to let people start talking about it, thinking about it. So we wanted also to have the voices of trans and non-binary people, non-conforming people that that are most affected by this technology. So thanks again to us, I found out about this impressive piece of research from many authors, including Morgan Klaus, who did an outstanding research, but also interviewed a lot of trans and non-binary people. And since today, as Veronica said, is non-binary People's Day, I wanted to extrapolate some of the quotes that were present in that study that we also included in our campaign page. Because we thought it's important to give a platform to trans, non-binary, non-conforming people, and also to let people hear the voices. A bit what Bianca said they did in their research. It's very important, and you can see here some of these quotes, and I'm not going to read out all of them, but just maybe one or two of them. Like the one of them says, automatic gender recognition has no provable, meaningful benefit, but it does have provable harm. Trans people should be concerned. It is bad technology and it doesn't work, but there will always be someone willing to deploy it. And this other one, which I find particularly powerful, says, I get misgendered enough by human beings. Why on earth would I want a robot to help with that? Programmatic misgendering just adds to the ocean of constant small comments we all swimming. Misgendering is death by 1,000 paper cuts. I think this is very indicative of what this technology is, how this technology is perceived by trans, non-binary, and non-conforming people. And now I will stop talking for a while, because another piece of the, let's say, educational content that we came up with is this video that you can see. This is my colleague, Tim Arolaut, and I want to give him a couple of minutes to explain to you more in details our campaign.
Imagine this. You are at an airport trying to catch your flight, and you're stopped by a computer saying you don't match the gender marker in your passport. Sound like a dystopian sci-fi story? No, this technology already exists, and it's called automatic recognition of gender and sexual orientation. It's a technology that tries to predict who you are by analysing your name, how you look and sound, or how you move. This technology is used by a growing number of governments and companies to identify and track citizens and consumers. But here's the thing. It doesn't work. The algorithms are programmed in a way that reinforces stereotypes about race, gender, and identity that are harmful to everyone. For LGBT+ people, these tools could lead to serious harm. With this technology in place, we could see people be denied access to certain spaces. Repressive governments could use facial recognition to track down people they assume to be LGBT+ and arrest them. This opens the door for LGBT+ people to be harassed and humiliated in airports, government buildings, and stores. The good news is we can do something about this. The European Union plans to propose a set of rules and guidelines to regulate artificial intelligence systems. This is our chance to get this harmful technology banned and prevent it from being exported around the world. Go to the link in the description and urge the European Union to ban automatic recognition of gender and sexual orientation.
All right, and so this is also this call to action, as we say, is also, in my opinion, one of the best ways.
Imagine this.
Oh, sorry.
You are at an airport trying.
Okay, sorry. One of the best ways, in my opinion, that you have to celebrate today's day, today's non-binary People's Day. It's you know, if all of you that are listening to this panel want to go to that website and sign the petition, I think it's important. So a little update is that, sorry, I'm measuring my time and I dropped my phone. So a little update on this is that on April the 21st, the European Union actually issued that piece of that law proposal, and that law proposal didn't include a ban on gender and sexual orientation automatic recognition. What they did was including some sort of other limitations and some sort of bans, but not the one that we wanted. But this is not the end of it, because that is a bill, it's a proposal. And now that bill has to go to the Parliament at the European Union Parliament, and the Council of the European Union Council, the two chambers that need to finalize the legislation process. So there are still plenty of opportunities to try and influence this legislative process. And that's why we are actually dialing up the pressure right now. So the invitation again to sign is really crucial. The last piece I want to talk to you about of this campaign is, which is also some sort of educational or like done to try and trigger the public debate, which we also think is super important, is this frequently asked question section in the campaign page. You will see, but also on social media that we created, and you can see here some of the questions. Of course, I'm not gonna go through all of them here, but I'm more than happy to expand on some of the questions in the next section if you have any question. But one thing that I want to say is that this technology is really harmful in very concrete ways. We have talked about the problems that this bring for non-binary and trans people and non-conforming people, but let's also think about sexual orientation, and imagine countries like Chechnya, for instance, where the authorities were literally on a hunt for who they thought were LGBT plus people in order to incarcerate them, torture them, and in some cases even kill them. And they were doing it by blackmailing people, stealing their phones, trying to find contacts. It was difficult for them to find assumed LGBTI people. But imagine if they had technology like this that can assume that they can use to predict even sexual orientation. So we know that doesn't work, but they probably would use it anyway because they don't really care about accuracy. Imagine the consequences for LGBTI people. And the other thing that I wanted to stress is that we have said, and it's absolutely right, that this is particularly dangerous and harmful for LGBTI people. But I also believe that really the example of ViaQuatro that was mentioned by Camila also says that this is actually harmful for everybody because it reinforces gender stereotypes. The idea that a company can administer some commercial or some ad because you are a woman, or they think you are a woman, or they think you are a man, and the content is designed to please what they think being a woman or being a man means in terms of taste, is absolutely stereotypical. It's creepy, really. So those are the two last points I wanted to make, and thank you for listening, and I'd be really happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Yuri, for that amazing presentation. My colleague Angela is sharing in the chat part that we have in our YouTube channel all the links of all the campaigns and research that have been mentioned. I personally invite you to go to the All Out campaign page, which was already shared. It's amazing that at this moment there are they have collected 24,936 signatures. That is a lot, and congratulations for that. That's amazing work. That's a lot of push, because you have learned from Camila, Bianca, and Yuri that this is a very problematic issue, and we should all be together pushing for this in the EU, because there is an ongoing legislation, but also something just to have this translate this to our local debates. There are ongoing debates right now on AI legislation or AI proposed AI even policies in some of our countries. They like the idea of artificial intelligence. It's fine, let's discuss this, but let's bear in mind that there are still problems, and there will be things that should be banned, as the one that we're discussing today, when we have a big problem that highlights. I can just share with you some of the words that are keep mentioning by our panelists. Our panelists mentioned discrimination not just in the moment when the technology is used, but discrimination even when they implement the technology, because there is this unconscious idea that our identity should just be a binary issue, when our realities are completely different and more complex, more rich. Also, another big word that was mentioned by our panelists was the idea of opacity, of non-transparency, of how this are implemented, who is behind, how much they pay, why they're getting this technology. This is important questions that need to be answered before this end up in a bill, end up in a legislation and things like that. We also hear a lot about the word of exclusion and how these technologies can lead up to more exclusion on a situation that already excludes most of these people. And again, this is not something that we will be happy to welcome. This technology should not be there on the first place. And we also talk about how to expand this message. It's important for us to expand this message, to start this for the panelists who are here today with me. It was quite important to start the debate. For us, it was like, this is a great opportunity, and thank you to the organizers of this event, because it's given us an opportunity to open the debate. This is just an initial step. We want more debate on this. We want more ideas. We want more activists to join us on the research, on the litigation, on the campaign side. It's quite important. And now we're going to go to the questions and answers, because there were some questions that are still happening on the chat, and I think that can spark and start this conversation that we are very eager to have. So we have a question for Camila, who was our first panelist regarding the ViaQuatro case. And this comes from Rafael Sanata. The question is, the ViaQuatro case was designed as a strategic litigation since the beginning. We know the results; those were very great results that we're getting so far, and we would love to know more and hear this from Camila, how the appeal, because you mentioned that you are in an appeal moment, so you appeal the last resolution. how this in the appeal part, how this gender argument will or can change the legal reasoning or the reasoning of the judge, how much this can change, and if you are thinking to include this more, or just let us know a little bit more about the appeal section and this important issue.
Thank you so much for the question, Zanata. Well, we are on this appeal phase, and both Idec and ViaQuatro appealed. Idec appealed for reasons of the amount of the fine and for the type of the fine, so I won't enter in these processual differences, but Idec made mainly for a procedimental, this appeal for this procedimental point of view. ViaQuatro appealed also in relation to the data protection law about the standard of proof, and basically reinforcing their difference of facial detection and facial recognition that we showed today, that it's not only facial detection but facial recognition. So summing up, gender was not the main focus on this appeal phase, but I would reinforce what Veronica said, because even if it wasn't the main argument, we can still talk more about this case and use as an empirical evidence of how this can harm people. And I'm really hopeful that this debate can go on in other situations and other cases, and that we can discuss more this intersection between gender and technology. And I would also say, Bianca mentioned that in the research they found that there was a problem of accuracy, and ViaQuatro said that the technology was not that accurate. It was 90% accurate in matter of gender. People could think that this would be enough, but I wouldn't say that, because this 10% is not about it's not about a simple thing. It's about discrimination. So this is really worrisome.
Thank you for that question, which leads me to another question for Bianca specifically. When you talk about this percentage that is not accurate, so there is at least 10% that the system will fail at some point. This question comes as an idea to challenge the position and all the research that you've been doing, the position that you have. What happens if there are, if the system meets, the 100% of accuracy? Because some people will think that maybe in the future the system will be 100% accurate. That will be perfect. What happens if we get to that point and we have a state that says, okay, yes, we do recognize that there are different, gender identities, and we welcome all of them? Do we still need to have? Are we still happy with the idea of facial recognition or not?
Veronica, this is a great question, because if we talk about it in the media and civil society, people are always talking about the accuracy of technology or even the transparency of the usage of this technology. But if we consider, I'm not talking about a technophobic speech, as I can say it. No, I'm talking about not accepting a techno-determinism. This is what we are talking about. And the discrimination has a wide concept if we take it into consideration. We have to think to what extent, right? The harm, to what extent of the harm we are talking about, and which are the effects. We're talking about an economic system that itself is predatory, a logic of consumery that is itself predatory. So as Camila said about this empirical case of ViaQuatro, I always think about the importance of bringing people together to the discussion of the effects of the wide range of adoption of this kind of technology to a different kind of experiences in the usage of this technology. We are plural. we are not equal. Right? We have a formal equality from law, but if we experience and day by day the not only the technology itself, but the accuracy also of the law in different bodies from different perspectives, as I was saying, about the intersectionality, about class, gender, race, and taking into consideration other aspects such as the deficiency in disabilities. This is the word. I'm creative. I'm creating words in English, but the disabilities as well, and other aspects of life that are taken into consideration when we talk about a plural society. This is what we are talking about. It's not only about the accuracy, the transparency. If it was 100% accurate, to what interests are in the topic, right, in the center of the discussion here. Is it good for society to have this kind of technology? If you are not discriminated by this kind of technology, other people who surround you as a society, as a community are. It is sufficient for us to build a society with the usage of this kind of technology. This is what we want for society. Do we have to adopt this techno-determinist speech about the technology itself and the incorporation of it in the civil society? This is the invitation I do for us to think when we talk about not only facial recognition, but the usage of technology itself in so many aspects, so many of them that we can't even predict what we're talking about.
Sure, and obviously the technology, if it's 100% accurate, it will always be intrusive. It will always look for something that maybe we don't want to share. We do have that capacity and that power and that right to not share what we don't want to share. We have that liberty to decide who we are and not to have the eyes of the government or the company seeing how we do it. I think that's something that it's inherent of our own decision in our body, and this goes even beyond the idea of censorship. No, sorry, of surveillances and things like that we always discuss. This is really important message, Bianca. Thank you for sharing that. And I have another question. This is for Yuri. We've been discussing about facial recognition in different senses and different approaches. As Camila mentioned, is this a categorization? She made it very clear how facial recognition can be divided. But can you explain us a little bit more about the differences that exist on facial recognition when we talk about gender and sexual orientation automated recognition? So how this works? I think it's good to have that clear because we've been talking, but it's always good to have that clear.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Absolutely, it's true that facial recognition is one of the main ways through which automated recognition of gender and sexual orientation work, but it's not the only one. There are also other technologies that even in a weirder way try to predict gender and sexual orientation by the way people move, not only the face, or by the way people speak. So this, I mean, of course, this makes it even crazier, right? So from the one hand, it gives this really old and flawed idea that sexual orientation and gender identity can be presumed, can be guessed by your appearance, by the way you talk, by the way you move, not only by the way your face looks, which is really brings me back to the idea of pseudoscience, really. Even if the science that can actually, artificial intelligence is hard science and it's real science, but if you use it to bring back old pseudoscientific stereotypes, this is definitely bad. And it's even worse if the accuracy is actually 100%. And again, what is the redeeming purpose of it? Is it just so that companies or governments are sure, that 100% sure that they can administer me an ad about drills because they think I'm a man and so they think that I am interested in drills? Why? So there is an example actually of this other technology that uses voices for guessing. I'm using this very simple word, but I think this is what it is, for guessing your gender identity or sexual orientation. It was a patent again, and I learned that from Access Now. I didn't know that before, but apparently Spotify patented this technology that they can listen to you while you're listening music on Spotify, which is creepy in itself. Again, they can listen to you to guess again your sexual orientation and sexual orientation and gender identity, for giving you better music that you might like more, given your sexual orientation or gender identity. This is actually not about sexual orientation. This is only about gender. But that's the big question. Why? How? I mean, Spotify knows already our taste because we are listening to certain music, not other music. Isn't that a better criteria to give us the music we like? They know our taste. Use that. Why do you need to know? How can gender define my taste in music? It might in some element, I don't know, but is it that crucial? I don't think so. So this is really the thing. It goes far beyond facial recognition, and it serves no redeeming purpose in society at all.
Thank you, Yuri. I think that was clear as water. I think it's good to know that, as you mentioned, that we started to talk about this on facial recognition as it's the easiest way to understand how this works, but there are plenty issues. We'll be sharing also on the chat in the YouTube channel some links to the letter that we sent to Spotify and that was signed by many people as well, and some examples as well. But maybe you don't know this, or maybe you do. But for example, McDonald's has this recognizing your voice in the drive-thrus that they have. And the idea is to recognize your gender, for example, your accent, your nationality. How do you sound? Oh my gosh. Maybe, and this is talking about, how we sound, but also how we behave. There is this thing called behavioral biometrics, how you move. Is there a way how, female and male, moves? I think we get to a point where the only thing that we are doing is getting more and putting more layers on how our society views, or how our communities views the idea of binary, people. It's something that it keeps having the more. As I'm trying to say, like we're putting more things on the problems that we have already as a society, as a community. I'm really happy about this panel. I will obviously give us some time to our panelists to close, to have your final remarks and final messages. Obviously, share with you the recent work that you're doing, or maybe campaigns that you have, or our next publications that you plan to publish, anything like that. These are your final minutes. We have like 8 minutes before we close this panel, and that's it. I give the floor to, we can start by Yuri, and then we finalize with Camila.
Thank you very much. Just to link to what you were saying, I will use my last minutes to share a very personal experience, because I think that might, help understand even better why I feel this is so creepy. You were mentioning the fact that they are also, analyzing the way we move. For a gay person, as me, growing up as a gay teenager, the way I moved was exactly the thing that most people was picking, and for bullying me, basically, for saying, "Oh, you're gay," and they knew that before I knew. I mean, in that case, they were right, I have to say, which is okay, but they didn't really care. I mean, the point is, there are many other people that were bullied, actually, like me, and they turn out to be straight. So that's the point. Is not that they might be right, they might be wrong, but the point is that in fearing information by the way people move, then give whoever is making that assumption also the power to discriminate, to bully, and that really resound, like it's something that goes deep in the lived experience of gay people, and I guess lesbian people as well. Like, I'm talking especially about sexual orientation here because it's my lived experience. I don't want to talk for other people, but it is really harmful. It is really painful as well to think that that we are back to that moment in our life when people were really scrutinizing every single detail of what you move, of the way you move, to try and find a soft spot to hurt you, or to use that for their advantage. This is really not pleasant, and I don't want other people to go through that experience with technology in all contexts. That, to me, that applied mainly at school, but I don't want other people to go through that experience at McDonald's or in their own homes when there is a microphone in their computers and a company is spying on them.
Oh my God, what could I say after Yuri? He said, I was very touched about everything he said about the vigilantism, about the movement and the assumption of behaviors through these kinds of lenses that are so degrading. And I was thinking about it. Me, as a bisexual woman, how does a bisexual looks like or acts like? How could technology see my or be in charge of taking into account my behavior? This is so, I never thought about this before, Yuri, and your speech really touched me about this, and I will also take into consideration to look through other kinds of lenses when I face the challenge of so many kinds of technology to identification and also to recognition of bodies, multiple kinds of bodies, especially in the LGBTQ plus community. Thank you so much about this experience you shared with us. I'm really thinking about it. I was learning a lot from you, from all of you. And in conclusion, what could I say? I would also reinforce the necessity, the importance of an alert of this expand to public debate, and for us to be concerned about transparency, accountability, the accuracy of technology, but not only that, to think about how these technologies work, and is this kind of technology only because it's technological? Does it mean we want to incorporate in our daily lives? What are the extents of possible prejudice it may take, or it may bring with it? And let's just be concerned about the public debate in the first place. But please follow us at Coding Rights. If you want to know a little more about our work, please follow us in our social medias and our Medium, codingrights.medium.com. Please be in touch with all our activities. We have cultural, artistic activities, and also other kinds of projects related to facial recognition, smart cities, and law itself. So please, you're all welcome to know a little more about our work and know about our next steps in other aspects. And about this research I was talking about, provided and written by Maria, a trans activist, and Joana Varón, our founder, you will find it at least partially translated easily in the internet in other blog posts, and several blog posts, as I can say. So thank you very much for this space, and thank you for the debate with you. I learned a lot, and I took notes from everything you said, and I hope we can get together really soon for other opportunities. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. It's hard to say after Yuri and Bianca. Thank you for sharing your experience, your knowledge, and even inside LGBTQ+ community, we still have a lot to learn. And it's so good to share this space with you. And it's so good to conclude. I guess we can all conclude that we are talking about technology, but we are also talking about human rights, about respecting all people. So let's bring this debate to more spaces. And yeah, I'm so touched right now after these personal comments. Thank you. And it was a great experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Camila. We're on time. Thank you, Yuri, Camila, Bianca, for this beautiful conversation. Very insightful. Thank you for the organizers as well. And I invite all of you to continue seeing the program for these 2 days that we have of event, and follow the work that all of these organizations are doing. Also, I will invite you to check the work that we are doing at Access Now. We are also seeking and pushing for a ban on these technologies. We do believe, as you might see, that for us it's completely a negative thing that we should avoid having in our communities. So thank you, and I think that's all. That's all for me, and that's all for us. Bye.